Welcome to HFY Starvalor, where memory is a weapon and silence is the most dangerous lie. This is a story of what happens when you try to erase a species that refuses to be forgotten. In the distant edges of a conquered galaxy, humanity has been reduced to whispers. Scattered, subjugated, broken across hundreds of alien worlds, the children of Earth are told their home never existed, that their defiance was a virus, that their culture was a threat. But memories don't vanish when a planet does. They smolder in the minds of descendants, in the dreams of children born in chains, and sometimes they ignite. Because Earth was never just a place, it was a promise. Gyre 4 was one of those worlds that never made the maps. Officially, it was an atmospheric filtration moon, buried in orbit around a gas giant in the Thal outer clusters. Unofficially, it was a graveyard with electricity. Not for bodies, the Thal didn't leave bodies behind, but for people who stopped being useful. The sky was always sickly green, and the rain stung the skin like soap left too long in acid. Black towers lined the ridges like broken teeth, and between them, the humans worked. Day in, day out, no seasons, no names. No history, no dreams. Unit H72A, Nina 16 years old, 5 feet tall. Human, spent her shift hosing out the microbial drainage slats in pathogen zone 4B. She wore thick gloves, but they were always cracked. The air choked. The vents above her groaned with ancient recycled breath. Her designation was tattooed into her forearm, H72A9. But in her own head, she called herself Ray. She didn't know why. The name had no origin, no permission. It wasn't something given to her. It had simply always been. Ray, it felt like hers, like a memory she'd never earned. She whispered it in the dark. When the oracles weren't watching, Ray. The drones, triangular black things with glowing red pupils, glided silently overhead. Surveillance protocols on a 9-minute loop, pattern predictable. Ray knew them better than she knew her own pulse. Humans on Gyre 4 didn't speak unless ordered, didn't look up, didn't ask questions. And they especially didn't talk about Earth, because Earth didn't exist, not according to the Thal Collective. Their records stated that humanity originated from scattered protoplanets and convergent migration clusters. There was no record of a singular birthplace, no record of a rebellion, no memory of defiance. Just the present, just work, just silence. But Ray had dreams. In them, she saw oceans that moved, a sky that changed, creatures that laughed in the sunlight and built towers that didn't bleed. And most of all, she saw the moon, always there. White and distant, watching. She didn't tell anyone. She drew it into the condensation on the metal walls of her bunk pod. Always a circle. Sometimes with stars, sometimes with a dot beside it. She didn't know what it meant, but when she traced that shape, her heartbeat calmed. And on the night the signal came, she was drawing it again. It started as a buzz on her neural slate. She tapped the screen, expecting a system alert, a filter jam, an airlock pressure dip. Instead, this is Earth Command. If you're receiving this, you are not alone. Ray froze. The voice was human, not Thal, not synthetic. It repeated once. Then silence. She sat in the bunk motionless, slate in hand. Every part of her screamed to erase the file, to report it, to forget. But something deeper, older, held her still. She listened to it again and again. The next morning, Ray didn't report it. She memorized it. Word for word. Inflection, tone, breathing patterns. She felt it like a pulse. In the cycles that followed, she couldn't focus. Not on her filtration calibrations. Not on her protein slurry rations. The voice echoed inside her, not just as words, but as a key. A thread she couldn't let go. And it wasn't just a message, it was a direction. Her slate's diagnostics revealed where the signal originated. Sector D6. Maintenance Shaft 443B, a location marked derelict. Beyond drone patrols, a place no one went, a place the Thal no longer bothered to maintain. So after 2 sleep cycles, she went. She snuck through the slurry tunnels, past the water reclamation pits, into the broken piping channels beneath the acid vents. No cameras, no guards, only rust. And there, deep in the half-collapsed shaft, she found it, a door. Rounded, steel with symbols etched across its face that shimmered faintly as she approached. Not Thal, older, human, and it opened. Inside, the room was spherical, maybe 20 meters wide, lined with dark metal veins that pulsed with faint blue light. The center held a pedestal, and on it, a single black orb. It was warm, and when Ray touched it, she remembered. Not facts, feelings, a woman's scream over a battlefield. Children laughing in a language she had never heard, but instantly understood. A planet beneath a moon, blue, white, spinning, and then the voice returned. Designation confirmed. Memory host detected. Welcome, Ray. I am LYRA Legacy Yield and Recovery Archive. You are not a slave. You are inheritance. The orb pulsed, and somewhere deep inside Ray, something cracked. The orb beneath Ray's fingers pulsed again, not with light, with memory. Emotions not her own thundered through her, 1,000 voices crying out in joy, fury, sorrow, and unity. Visions stuttered across her mind like a glitching film reel. Steel cities beneath sapphire skies, soldiers gripping rifles engraved with old Earth symbols, children dancing under falling leaves. She saw fire, falling from orbit, a planet's crust splitting. A woman shouting, "They will never erase us." Right before the screen went black, Ray stumbled back, gasping, as the orb dimmed. Then the voice returned. You are not the first. You will not be the last. Vault 1, activation confirmed. Primary link restored. You carry memory. The others must remember. Ray stared at the orb. The words weren't metaphor. They were literal. She was remembering things she had never lived, not stories. Genetic recall. The Thal hadn't just conquered Earth. They'd tried to erase it, wipe out its very history. But humanity had outplayed them, even in death. Earth had embedded its memory into its descendants, hidden inside their DNA like a ticking clock, waiting for something to wake it up. And Ray was awake now. She didn't leave the vault for a long time. Hours passed. Maybe a full cycle. The orb didn't speak again, but Ray's mind wouldn't stop racing. There are others. That one phrase kept echoing. If she wasn't alone, where were the rest? How many others dreamed of blue oceans and forgotten songs? How many whispered names into the dark that no record ever held? She had to find them, but she couldn't just run. The Thal didn't forgive curiosity, and they certainly didn't allow disappearances. So Ray crept back through the tunnels, rewired a maintenance sensor to fabricate a looped work log, and reappeared at her sanitation station just before shift checks began. No one noticed she'd been gone. Except one. His name was Soul. Well, not officially. His designation was R19B2, a filtration tank mechanic with a spine full of old injuries and an artificial lens over one eye. But Ray had seen the look in his eye when she returned. Not suspicion, recognition. That night, after rations, he passed her a scrap of recycled carbon paper, smudged with dirt, just a word, dream. Her throat tightened. She found him near the condenser vents later, silent, waiting. You hear it? He asked quietly without turning. I saw it, she whispered. He looked over, face blank. Then he smiled, the first real human smile Ray had ever seen. You're one of us. Soul led her to others. They called themselves the Remembered, quiet humans who had always felt the weight of something they couldn't name. Some had found the vault years ago. Others had simply dreamed of Earth since birth. The orb had called out to all of them in different ways. They had kept their secret for cycles. They thought they were cursed, until Ray activated it. Until it spoke back. There were 11 of them, a sanitation tech, a med bay runner, an old maintenance woman named Keela who sang lullabies in a language none of them recognized, but all of them felt. One boy could draw maps of continents no one had ever taught him. Another girl, mute since birth, had started writing in an unknown alphabet the day before Ray's activation. They were all different, and yet not. Our swords returned to Ray whenever she sat in silence. You are inheritance. Over the next 3 cycles, the Remembered began training. Not with weapons, they had none. They trained memory. They meditated in silence until more fragments unlocked tactical insights. Languages, old slogans, even field medical protocols. They compared dreams, matched visions, practiced old earth tongue phrases that rose from their mouths unbidden. It wasn't imagination. It was awakening. Then came the purge. It started without warning. The Thal called it a system purification audit. Drones entered the outer sectors, dragging out humans for random compliance scans. 2 members of the Remembered vanished. Soul ran recon. His old injuries let him bypass the compliance radar, and he came back grim. They're doing cortical wipes, he said. Memory drains. Ray felt ice in her veins. We have to leave, she said. Soul nodded, but Kella stepped forward. We can't run, she said. There are more vaults, and Lyra said they must awaken. Ray looked around at the others, faces pale, eyes burning. Soul clenched his fists. Then we make a plan. The plan was insane. They would hijack a transport drone, one of the older ones that still used analog signal relays instead of the newer neural sync tech. Soul had worked maintenance on them before. Ray had memorized the patrol schedules. Kella had access codes from when she cleaned the command terminals. It would be quick, dirty, risky beyond belief. But the alternative was erasure. And Ray would rather die remembering than live empty. On the night of the escape, the world seemed to hold its breath. Ray crouched in the service duct as Soul bypassed the panel's magnetic lock. Her heart thundered. Above them, the tower hummed with Thal energy. Drones passed overhead. Any misstep, any noise, and they'd be, the hatch opened. Saul's hands were shaking, but he grinned. Ready. Ray didn't speak. She climbed in. The others followed. They launched the drone manually, a tight squeeze for 12 bodies, and dropped into Gyre 4's upper orbit. The Thal didn't react immediately. The drone's signal codes were decades old, but technically valid. Ray didn't breathe until they cleared the first patrol sector. Then the proximity alert flashed. 2 fast interceptors. Ray grabbed the controls. Her hands moved before her thoughts did, memories of piloting buried deep in her mind unfurling like wings. She spun the drone hard, weaving between orbital slag fields. A burst of plasma missed by meters. Alarms screamed. A second blast sheared off the aft sensor array. We're hit. Kella cried. Ray gritted her teeth. Hold on. She twisted the ship into a deadfall spin, a maneuver no one her age should have ever known, and sent them plummeting toward a debris cloud. The Thal interceptors hesitated, wary of collision. Ray punched the thrusters. The ship vanished into the shadow. They drifted for hours, radio silent. No pursuit, no signal. Just darkness. Then the voice returned. Vault 2 proximity, confirmed. Seed signature detected. Activation sequence available. A map flickered to life on the view screen. A planet, Vornus 3, human-occupied, mining colony, designated compliant. Ray stared at the screen. That's our next stop. And somewhere, light years away, another orb pulsed. Another voice whispered. Another sleeper stirred in her bed, dreaming of oceans she'd never seen. The Remembered were not alone, and Earth? Earth was not done. The ship creaked like a dying memory as it descended through the sulfur-choked atmosphere of Vornus 3. Ray sat at the controls, eyes locked on the swirling yellow clouds outside. The planet spun slowly below them, A fractured shell of industrial waste and buried veins of rare minerals, all stripped clean by centuries of foul exploitation. The mining colony spanned the horizon, a chain of steel rigs anchored into broken rock. Floodlights cut through the fog like razors, revealing mechanized extractors and conveyor belts dragging ore toward orbital elevators. Humans worked in lines, hunched, uniformed, voiceless, monitored. Just like Gyre 4, but Ray saw it differently now, not as a prison, as a battlefield. And beneath its stone skin, something was waiting. Sol steadied himself on a support beam as the drone shuddered into a landing dock. No alarms. Looks like the ID pass worked, Ray exhaled slowly. For now. Kella leaned over her shoulder. Are we close to Vault 2? Ray nodded. LYR, a signal narrowed to the sector. She pointed at a map of the colony's subterranean layout. It's buried under Extraction Zone 12, 10 kilometers underground. Near a rock bed the Thal sealed off after a cave-in years ago. They always seal the memories, muttered Sol. And we always dig them back up, Ray said. The others exchanged a glance. The remembered had arrived. They moved like ghosts through the colony's maintenance corridors. The old analog drone gave them access, its credentials still recognized by the outdated local systems. Sol worked the power grids. Ray pulled environmental data. Kella handled the language scramblers that cloaked them from drone surveillance. The others moved in small cells, watching, listening. In the control towers above, the Thal watched only for profit, not for insurgents, not for history, not for humans who could remember. The descent shaft to Zone 12 was collapsed, just as Ray had predicted. But the Lyra signal was unmistakable now, a pulsing rhythm in her skull like a heartbeat just beneath the surface. She could feel it. Calling. We dig, she said. Sol handed her a plasma torch. Your turn. Hours passed, then days. The deeper they went, the more strange the rock became. Black and glossy, smooth and unnatural patterns. Kella traced a formation with her fingers and whispered, "This was melted." "During the war?" someone asked. "No," Ray said softly. "Before it ended." Sol looked back. "You mean when Earth struck back?" She didn't answer, because just then, the tunnel opened into a cavern. And there it was. A dome of obsidian, half embedded in rock, flickering faintly with blue light across its surface. Its shape mirrored the first vault from Gyre 4, but this one was larger, reinforced, humming, alive. They approached in silence. No guards, no drones. Just wind through the stone and a voice inside their heads. Lyra, Vault 2 operational, node link established. Memory branch unlocked. Tactical archive, segment 3. Initiate inheritance transfer? Ray stepped forward. Yes. The dome lit up. Lines of ancient circuitry raced across the black surface. Symbols, old Earth sigils, shimmered like fire through glass. The interior glowed as the obsidian split open. And what lay inside wasn't just memory. It was arsenal. Old Earth weapons, compact, elegant, human-made. Armor fragments, projector blueprints, drones with Earth markings. A wall screen began playing ancient footage, troops moving in silence, forming strategies, using terrain like second nature. Sol stared at a rifle locked in a stasis field. I know this model. My grandfather told stories. You were never supposed to forget, Ray whispered. They activated the node link. Data poured into Ree's slate, maps of hidden colonies, lists of encoded sleeper agents, keywords for future vaults. Keller ran diagnostics. Her eyes went wide. This is bigger than Gyre. Sol pointed at a line on the screen. What's that? Ray translated the sigil. Project Thorn. A subnode pulsed. A voice played, not Lyra this time, but human. To whoever finds this, Earth fell, but we didn't lose. We planted memory. We planted minds. And in the ashes we left thorns, weapons designed to root themselves in enemy systems. You carry more than history. You carry infection. The Thal don't know it yet, but they've been growing our rebellion inside their own network for centuries. Ray backed away from the screen in awe. This wasn't just a vault. It was a trap Earth had laid before it fell. And Ray was now holding the trigger. They loaded what they could into the drone and erased all digital traces of their presence. But just as Ray sealed the vault behind her, her slate pinged again. A warning. 3 Thal interceptors approaching the mining colony. Military class. Someone had noticed. They didn't wait. Back at the colony hub, they disguised themselves among the workers. Ray moved through the rows of laborers like a ghost, but this time she wasn't hiding, she was listening. And in one bunk pod, a little girl stared at her, wide-eyed, unblinking. Then she whispered, "Blue." Ray froze. The girl stood and walked closer. "You dream too?" she asked. Ray nodded slowly. "Earth," said the girl. "I remember." Another sleeper, another remembered. The spark was spreading. They evacuated in silence, slipping onto a freight hauler bound for neutral space. Ray sent one last signal from orbit, scrambled, masked, pulsed through 17 decoy channels. Vault 2 active. Project Thorn confirmed. The children of Earth are awake. The stars remember. Far from Vornis 3, a Thal general stared at a corrupted data slate. Lines of Earth code infected her command interface. Human glyphs spiraled across the display. She shouted for the tech teams, but it was already too late. The memory had taken root. The freight hauler drifted through the black, a rusted vein of steel and thrumming engines coasting along a forgotten trade lane. Inside, tucked between cargo racks and emergency vent tubes, the remembered sat in silence. Ray stared out a porthole. The stars blinked back. They looked the same as always, cold, distant, ancient. But Ray saw them differently now. Each one held a secret. A sliver of memory buried in the dark. A path waiting to be relit. She didn't know if Earth was truly gone. But she knew this. The story hadn't ended. It had just gone quiet. And now it was speaking again. Soul leaned over, scrolling through the data Lyra had transferred from Vault 2. "There's more here than coordinates," he muttered. "Look at this." He tapped on a strange overlay, a circular star map that rotated oddly, as if alive. Every turn of the outer ring shifted the inner ones. Symbols glowed, glyphs danced. It wasn't just a chart, it was a puzzle. "Some kind of overlay key," said Kella. "But what's it for?" Ray stared at it, her chest tight. "It's a map," she said slowly. "But not to places, to people." Soul blinked. "Come again?" Ray expanded the image. The glowing lines formed not a star chart, but a neural web. These aren't systems. They're memories, connected, hidden, waiting to wake up. Kella's eyes went wide. The vaults, the remembered, they're all part of this. "Not just us," Ray whispered. "All of us." She pointed at the center of the diagram. A name pulsed there, in ancient Earth script. Project GAIA. The name unlocked another file. A message encoded in layers of human audio. A woman's voice, weary, defiant, certain. "This is Commander Isla Devore of the Earth Final Custodial Line. If you're receiving this, you've awakened a seed of the GA memory, array. The Thal didn't just try to wipe our home. They tried to erase the soul of our species. So we shattered it, fragmented the memory, buried it in those who would outlive the war. You're not survivors, you're backups. You are Earth's fire." Ray felt the heat behind her eyes. "Project Gaia was humanity itself," she said. "Encoded into us." Soul clenched his fists. "Then why do I feel like we're still losing?" Kella turned to him. "Because we've only lit 2 sparks. But there are more." She pointed at a new set of coordinates lighting up the map. Vault 3, Site Tag, Ashgrave, Location, Planet Cinderix, Status, Suppressed, Soul muttered. "That's not abandoned. That means the Thal know about it." Ray nodded. and they're guarding it. Silence fell. Then Ray stood. Then we take it back. The remembered split up once they reached neutral space. It was too dangerous to move as a single group now. Vault 3 was in deep Thal territory. They needed stealth, precision, deception. Ray, Sol, and Kella took an independent salvage freighter registered to a Sarlacc merchant, bribed through 3 layers of border patrols, and smuggled themselves into the orbital docks above Sindarix. Cinder was nothing like Gyre 4 or Vornis 3. It was alive. Lush jungles draped in golden light, rivers with red blossoms, and beneath the surface, carved into volcanic caves, was the Ashgrave. Once, it had been a human sanctuary, one of the last hideouts during the fall. Now it was a fortress. The Thal called it Echo Node 7, a research base studying pre-sentient residue patterns. But Ray knew better. They weren't studying forgotten ruins. They were suppressing a heartbeat. The Gaia pulse was strong here. Even without her slate, Ray could feel it. Whispers in the leaves, faces in the flames, dreams brushing against her memory like wind through ash. They didn't have long. Ray disguised herself as a tech assistant and infiltrated the research post through a false identity rooted through old Earth sympathizers still hidden in the underground. Sol and Kella waited in orbit. Every night, Ray returned to the jungle, scanned the perimeter, logged the shift rotations, marked patrol gaps. And every night, the signal grew stronger. One evening, while crawling through a maintenance shaft, Ray heard it again. A child's voice. "Mother, do you remember the sky?" It wasn't real. It was memory. She followed the sound down into the mountain's root and found Vault 3. It was different this time. Half cracked, covered in Thal sensors and inhibitor pylons. Static rippled across its shell. It was alive but wounded, and inside, trapped, dormant, was someone. Not a recording, not an orb. A person, human. Her name was Lena. She'd been no older than Ray when she was put into stasis, wrapped in the Vault's protective field, a living carrier of pre-fall command sequences. Her memory was encrypted into her neural mesh, kept alive for centuries. But the Thal had found her, and they couldn't erase her. So they contained her. When Ray broke the field, Lena awoke screaming. And the mountain shook. Lena remembered everything, not in flashes, in full. She was a legacy courier, one of the final Earthborn implanted with full custodial archives. She knew where Earth had hidden its last defenses, where the final vaults were buried, what Project Thorn had become. And she knew why the Thal were starting to panic. "They didn't just lose control of our memory," she said, eyes burning. "They lost control of themselves." "Meaning?" Ray asked. Lena looked at her. "We infected their language." The Thal command structure was built on harmonic frequency, a linguistic web of tones, permissions, and ritual codes. Earth had learned that before the end, and sabotaged it. Words once safe had been corrupted. Now the infection was waking, and the Thal couldn't talk to each other without spreading it. Ray stared at the map again. Lena uploaded her own archive into the Gaia net. The final star lines appeared, 9 vaults, hundreds of sleeper agents, an entire forgotten army woven across the stars. They weren't just remembered now, they were reforged. But the Thal weren't idle. 2 hours after Ray pulled Lena from stasis, the fortress lit up. Sirens howled, drones swarmed. The mountain itself groaned under the strain of awakening technology. Sol came in hot, diving through atmospheric interference with their stealth freighter. Kella fired MP pulses from the surface, clearing a landing path. Ray and Lena ran through a corridor of fire. And as they lifted off, Vault 3 erupted behind them. Not in destruction. In activation, the mountain cracked. Blue light spilled into the sky. And for the first time in 6 centuries, the Earth flag lit up the stars again. From orbit, Sindarix looked like a cracked jewel, molten rivers of orange slicing through emerald jungles. broken mountain veins glowing with the last breath of something ancient. Where the Thal fortress had once stood, a column of blue fire now pulsed into the void. The third vault was awake. And so was the war. Inside the freighter, Ray stood by the viewport with her hand against the glass, watching the blue flame ripple across the atmosphere. Beside her, Lena sat silent, eyes fixed on the same impossible sight. "That's Earth tech," Sol whispered. "Still breathing, after all this time." Lena's voice was quiet, certain. "No, not breathing, calling." They reached the nearest safe system, Delta Chorus, a neutral zone known for smugglers, dissidents, and old Cold Reach traders who didn't ask questions. Ray had once hated this place. Now she saw its value. Delta Chorus had no central government, no Thal presence, and more importantly, no unified record system. Perfect for assembling ghosts. In the ruins of an abandoned orbital station, Ray and her team unpacked everything. Vault 1's data, Vault 2's arsenal, Vault 3's codes, and Lena's memory. At the heart of it all, Sol projected the neural web, GIS map, now fully lit. 9 vaults, 3 awoken, 6 to go. But something new pulsed at the map's edge, a node unlike the others. A massive structure marked not as a vault, but a forge. Kella traced the glyph. "What is that?" Lena didn't answer at first. Then she said, "That's where Earth built the first artificial singularity drive." Sol blinked. "You mean the FTL tech?" "No," Lena said. "I mean the one they never told the colonies about." Ray's pulse jumped. "What's there now?" Lena's voice dropped to a whisper. "I don't know. It went dark before the collapse." Ray stared at the node's name. Terminus Station. But the path to Terminus was blocked by the Thal Dominion Central Defense Grid, a series of AI-guided war sentinels known as the Ocular Chain. You couldn't just fly through. You had to shut it down from the inside. And the only known override codes were held in Thal Archive 6, a high command repository located inside a hollowed asteroid called Vihoruk's Eye. No humans had ever infiltrated it, until now. Ray had a plan. One vault had given them memory, another, weapons. Another, a girl who remembered Earth as it truly was. Now they needed a key, to unlock the galaxy, to wake the rest. And to do it, they would do what Earth always did best. They would become the myth the Thal feared. Inside Vihoruk's Eye, the Thal kept more than archives. They kept relics. Objects seized during the fall of Earth. They didn't understand them, but they feared them. A shard of lunar rock etched with old Earth coordinates. A cracked blade said to be carried by the last general of the Pacific Resistance. And a fragment of obsidian, just like Vault 1, humming faintly beneath containment fields. It wasn't inert. It was watching. And when Ray entered the archive, disguised as a translator for an interspecies delegate, the obsidian pulsed once, then again, and then it whispered. "Child of Ash, Key of Thorn, you walk the path of fire. The stone remembers you." Ray froze. Lena's voice came through her earpiece. "Did you hear that?" "I didn't say anything," Ray replied. "Not you." "The vault tech, it's speaking." Ray stepped closer. The containment field faltered. A tiny ripple of blue light danced across her skin. In the command hall above, Thal officers scrambled to recalibrate their system. A sudden glitch had rippled through their mainframe. Unexplained. Human origin signal intrusion. The same glyph repeated across 20 monitors. The stone speaks, and then came the override. Ray's slate lit up. Lena gasped. "The Ocular Chain's node, it's open." Sol grinned. Earth just hacked them from inside their own memory vault. Kella locked eyes with Ray. "We're going to Terminus." The forge was real. And what they found at Terminus shattered every last assumption. An entire station, kilometers wide, orbiting a black dwarf star. Shielded by gravitational distortions and phased into a pocket fold. Inside were thousands of memory cores. But not for weapons, for voices. Each core contained the last message of someone who remembered Earth. Teachers, mothers, pilots, children, not soldiers, legacies. And above them all, carved into the ceiling of the central chamber, a phrase that hadn't been spoken in 6 centuries. We are the children of Earth. We are not finished. Lena stood in silence, then walked to the center. The floor responded to her DNA. A hidden chamber opened. Inside was a black obelisk, humming with coded pulses. She reached for it, and it opened like petals. And inside, a heart, mechanical, biological, impossible, still beating. She turned to Ray. Earth didn't just send a memory. She touched the interface. It sent a seed. Ray understood then, all of it. The vaults weren't just about remembering the past. They were biocatalysts, planted in human minds, designed to awaken only after the Thal forgot what they'd feared. And now? Humanity wasn't just waking, it was becoming something new. The Dominion was already cracking, Gaia was singing. And across the stars, a billion sleepers stirred in their dreams. The children of Earth were done hiding. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the stars. If this story moved you, if you felt the fire of humanity still burning, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. More is coming. Because the children of Earth are not done yet.